Hello, my name is Ryan Oates. Welcome to the first of a series of videos about the state legislature races in 2026 in the greater Lowell area. I'm here today with a candidate for the 16th Middlesex District, Lorena Betts. Lorena, thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so before jumping into your backstory and your platform and talking about some issues, I wanted to clarify just some logistical things about the race. So you are running for state rep for 16th Middlesex District, right, for the state legislature.
That's correct.
There's currently an incumbent, right?
Yes.
So Rodney Elliott is the incumbent for that position. However, after the tragic passing of Senator Ed Kennedy, and my condolences to his family and loved ones, but after his passing, there's now a special election for that state Senate seat, and the incumbent, Rodney Elliott, who's in your position now, is running for that state Senate seat. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. And
Okay.
yeah, that is a conversation that I've been having with so many people, because with the new race coming up, this is something that people are questioning. How does that change? Does it change anything? And so, yes, we have the primary for the Senate race on February 3rd, and he's running for that seat. And State Rep Vanna Howard is also running for that seat.
Great.
So far, he's still running against me. And then the results from February 3rd will decide if that changes or not, if he comes back to run for the state rep seat or if he moves on to be the next senator.
I see.
We'll find out.
Yeah. I am curious, given that context, does that affect the way you run? Are you running against an incumbent, or are you just running, based on your ideas? How's that work?
I say nothing has changed. I'll continue to do my very best and work really hard. The goal has not changed, which is to really get to know the people in the district, what their priorities are, meeting people one-on-one, meeting people face-to-face. That has not changed. Yes, so I'll continue running as if I had an incumbent, or if I didn't have it, I'll still have to meet the people, because that's the people I want to serve.
Let's allow the people to meet you then. So I want to hear, what is the Lorena Betts backstory? How did you come to this position to be running for the 16th Middlesex representative position?
Sure. So I am a Brazilian American, and originally from Brazil, grew up in Brazil, was raised by parents who grew up in the Brazilian military dictatorship. And so in our home, democracy was something that we took very seriously. I always tell this story that my dad used to host political rallies, where the back of his truck was the stage, and the whole neighborhood would come, and everybody would participate. Someone would bring the sound system. So that was kind of the kind of engagement in the democratic process that I grew up with. And so in 2011, I had the opportunity to come to the U.S. as an au pair to learn English, and I wanted to have better professional opportunities in Brazil, and being bilingual, I believed it was going to help me with that. So I came, but while I was here, I met my husband, Jeremy, and we got married in 2012. And although I do have a background in nursing in Brazil, after we got married and I wanted to resume that here, I found out that my degree from Brazil was not accepted here. So I had to kind of reinvent myself. And that's when I decided to become an interpreter. So I first became a medical interpreter, and I would help people that don't speak English to navigate medical appointments of all kinds. But after that, I became a immigration court interpreter. And that's where I really learned how policy and laws can really either open doors or keep people out. And I really believed that we need immigration reform. And I know people have different ideas around what that looks like, but I think I've talked to people from both sides of the aisle that agree that things have to change. And so how can that change happen? We need to be engaged politically. So looking back to my childhood and that background, I started getting engaged again in advocacy. Even as an immigrant, still finding my voice here in the U.S. I have to say that was difficult because it took me a long time to find belonging, to feel that I was really welcomed here. I had instances where people would tell me, to go back to Mexico, even though I'm not from Mexico.
Yeah.
So really finding, do I have a right to be asking for more for people? But when I care about something, I have to do something. So I started engaging in advocacy and getting involved with nonprofit organizations. And in one of the events for nonprofits, I met Senator Jamie Aldridge, who does a lot of work, in the Commonwealth with different communities. And through meeting him, I got even more engaged in advocacy, and I started volunteering for political campaigns and learning more about how that works, and met more legislators, and that network grew, and learned more how about the legislative process and what were the bills that were being introduced that had to do with the issues that I cared about. And so that opened new doors for me, and helped me see the ways that I could impact change. And through those relationships, I ended up getting a job with the State Rep Dan Cena at the State House, and worked for him, and learned again a lot at the State House how the legislative process works. But I would say the number one thing for me that impacted me my time at the State House was seeing the grassroots organizers coming in and advocating for the things that they cared about. Like, I would look at my boss's emails from advocates, and those were the things he wanted to hear from them, and he would prioritize the things that they cared about. I'm like, oh, it does matter that people are reaching out. They do pay attention. So when I got pregnant with my third child, unfortunately, even though I really loved that job, I had a very complicated pregnancy. My baby and I almost died. And so I decided to leave that job. But I would say after she was born, I think 3 months in, I already started getting, antsy about advocacy. And that's when I started thinking, how can I now apply the knowledge that I acquired from my time at the State House and help other people to become advocates? Because I believe strongly that everyone needs to be advocates for the issues they care about and engage in the legislative process and engage with their legislators. So through that, I co-founded the Peacemakers Network. And what we do with the Peacemakers Network, to summarize briefly, it's we used to say we raise peacemakers, but how do we do that? 3 ways. We educate people on issues of human rights and social justice issues. We do workshops. We bring experts to talk about those issues. But one of the things that I enjoyed doing the most was that I sat down for a few months with 2 amazing people who worked for combined, I think, both of them over 60 years combined of experience in the legislature. And we created this, I'll call it, signature program about how to build a relationship with your legislator.
Wow.
And this course goes from the difference between local, state, and federal government, starting from the very basics, to how does a bill becomes law, what is the budget, and how does it work, how to schedule a lobby visit with your legislator, how to give testimony on a bill, how to build a relationship with the legislative aid, like all the things that can help us to be actively engaged in the legislative process. And we've taught people how to do that. And we also do events to build community. I think that it is very easy to be isolated in our own silos, only caring about the things that affect me. But once we are around our neighbors, we realize, first of all, we have a lot more in common than we thought. But second of all, it helps us to care about things that affect other people too. So we do a lot of community events as well. So next, through these events, talking to the community, I saw some patterns. Some of the older people really wanting to get engaged. So I'm teaching people how to get engaged. People want to get engaged, but they're finding a lot of barriers. They are wanting to get engaged in government, but we've seen there is a barrier in transparency. And I'm not even saying this to blame one legislator or another. This is a systemic problem. It didn't start last year. It didn't start this year. This has been built through years, decades. So, but it's the time to act is now. But what has contributed to a discouragement in the people? People are now really, they were starting to feel, does it really matter that I engage? Because I don't know how my legislator is voting. I can't find a way. I don't know when the bill is having a hearing. So I got really troubled because I'm like, your voice matters. Do something. But they're like, oh, Lorena, but how do I do it? So then the younger people, I'm talking and I have a passion of getting them engaged, and we try to do events to, bring them in and get them engaged. And they're like, really, like, not, I don't want to generalize, but like a lot of the younger people I talk to, they have grown really discouraged of what they've seen. They're like, it's not worth it. A lot of them have really started taking charge of mutual aid and doing things in a different way because they don't believe in the political system anymore. And by the way, amazing mutual aid networks, amazing work. And I do believe we need them. We need all kinds of different, engagement. But I'm like, something needs to be done. And so through these conversations, I came with this one thing. I want to bring government closer to the people it serves, number one. And of course, seeing the needs in the community, seeing that there is an affordability crisis. There is issues that are affecting our communities in a way that people are becoming homeless, people are hungry, people can't afford their groceries, and there's urgency. And I feel that urgency deeply because I am with the community. I'm spending time with them. And I do believe that our legislature needs a little more of that sense of urgency. I don't think that we have, we could be passing more bills with more urgency. And so that's why I decided to run. And finally, I would say, I know this has been a very long explanation, but finally I would say I have to be honest, as an immigrant myself, seeing what's happening with ICE in our neighborhoods, the way that they are, masked men are being allowed to go in our streets and take people without warrants and treating people so inhumanely. And honestly not hearing enough from some of our legislators, not seeing enough action. Really, it's really upsetting. And I am committed to, I know at the state level there's only certain things that can be done, but there are things that can be done. And why are we not doing? So those are some of the things that really push me to run. But I always say it comes down to it is my relationship with the community, is seeing the needs and feeling the urgency and wanting to engage in that and do something about it.
I appreciate you going into your platform there. I have a question that I like to ask a lot of different candidates that come on, because I think it's a helpful framing question. And then after that, I think we can get into some of those specific areas of your platform. So Lowell is going to be seeing a lot of economic development in the next decade, I would imagine. We have the Link project, which Chancellor Julie Chen just spoke to the City Council about, kind of described very clearly for the public.
The Link project is an exciting vision that we talk about, not as two buildings, not as a handful of plots on the university campus, but as a catalyst for economic development for all of Lowell.
We have the frontrunner city.
We are going to declare Lowell as the first U.S. frontrunner city here in Geneva,
which is still, for the general public, I think less clear exactly what's coming with that, but I've been reading up on the UN frontrunner city initiatives, some books that I've seen recommended by different counselors and the new counselor-elect Belinda Duran. And so based on all this stuff, it's got me thinking about, we're having economic development. We're going to see wealth coming into this community one way or another. That can go well and that can go poorly. So like, I think when you see rapid economic development of an area, on the one hand, that could lead to economic inequality, right? You could have gentrification and people currently here being pushed out.
But what's important then is that the city doesn't become a sort of victim of its own success. So sometimes what we see is this sort of growth. The city becomes trendy, it becomes cool, it becomes a great place to live, and then starts to become more expensive and it becomes gentrified.
Wealth for some at the expense of others. Or, and I guess what I hope for is for inclusive prosperity, where, you know, that can lead to a better life for everybody. So my question for you is, how do you think Lowell can build inclusive economic prosperity, and what would you do as a state rep to try and build that?
Yes, 100%. I was actually at an event this morning where it was talked about, the front runner, and yes, people have questions. I did hear from the mayor the word inclusivity. So I do think that there is an intention for that. But I also think that the community will need to continue to stay together for accountability. But as a state rep, I would say my priority would be to, again, the accountability part, to make sure that the voices of the people that are usually in the margins are at the center, that people that are being affected by these decisions are also at the table. Again, going back to what I was talking earlier about government being closer to the people, there is, within the political establishment, there is a pattern of closed doors deals. There is a pattern of political insiders making decisions, and then later on the public finding out about what was decided for them. I think we should have learned by now that does not work well. I have read and seen some videos about that hearing from the Markley situation.
It's really sad that you guys did not want us to speak. Can you imagine?
Transparency. We haven't had it. We still don't have it, nor are we ever going to get it if we keep going like this.
The neighbor concerns, so the last meeting they were supposed to address the neighbor concerns between June and now, when they're back for more approvals. Those concerns have not been addressed according to the neighbors, and that to me is a sign of broken trust.
Trust between the neighbors and the organization is clearly broken.
I think the community is well informed, and the community is not going to just sit by the side and let their lives be decided by others. They are ready for engagement, and I am hoping that the leaders of the city are going to meet them there. And as a legislator, I would like to be a bridge and be a partner into helping making that happen, because when the most marginalized people in the community are prospering, that is a sign of a prosperous city. So I am 100% committed of bringing those voices in, and I would like to believe from what I heard this morning that's the commitment of the leadership of the city as well. But again, we need accountability. We need to continue with that intentionality. And also, I was thinking, when we're talking about bringing new developers and to invest in the city, we need to be passing on that message to them as well, that this is it's about shared prosperity. And if they're coming in here, it's about bringing in jobs. It's about benefiting the community in Lowell, not only filling up the pockets of, developers and corporations. So I think there's more to come on that, but I am a person who likes to remain hopeful, cautiously hopeful. But I think that with accountability, we can have shared prosperity in Lowell.
One area that you just made me think of when talking about jobs is trying to make sure that these jobs that come in are jobs that the local population could someday imagine themselves getting. And part of that, preparing workforce development. I know a big part of the LINK project is that there's workforce development and workforce housing that all comes with that.
For us, it's creating those career-connected experiences, paid internships, paid co-ops. But as you'll see, we have a lot of programs that really support potential employees all the way from high school graduates and beyond.
But that's at least at the university level. I'm wondering, for the kids who live in Lowell, who aspire to go to UMass Lowell someday and possibly take one of those jobs, what do you think as a state legislator we should be doing to prepare kids for those jobs in terms of education and resources that would help to make them be able to get those jobs?
I think number one is to hire good teachers, is to fund the schools well. Equally, we need to be funding schools based on their needs, not based on zip codes and the taxes that they bring. We need to be, funding. The funding needs to be equal. The funding needs to be based on their needs. Partnering with technical schools and already, start preparing them even before college. So when they get to college, they feel empowered. Yes, I think that the investment in them and the preparation starts even before they are ready to, to take the next step to college. But we need to invest in our schools. And as a state legislator, I will be fighting for those funds, and I will be advocating that those funds need to come equally to all the schools.
I'm glad you brought up education funding, because it's really at the heart of making schools equitable. I work in Lexington, I live in Lowell, and the dollars available per student are very different because of the way the education funding system works, where local property taxes are the kind of initial base, and then the state will help to match the rest of the required amount. So the Student Opportunity Act, I know, was a big step that tried to address that inequality. Mm-hmm. So the Student Opportunity Act, for those who are unfamiliar, changed the funding formula so that cities and towns with large populations of students from low-income families and students who are multilingual learners would get more education funding as a way to try and be more equitable. However, my understanding is that there was kind of a bug in that policy where that funding is not fixed to inflation. So effectively, every year as inflation goes on, the school is basically losing some money that they could be getting for those multilingual learners and low-income students. I'm wondering, would you support efforts to adjust school funding to inflation?
Yes, 100%. I mean, when it comes to funding, every single dollar lost is an impact on children and education and their future. And if you think about, again, the future of the workforce, if we want to have investment on a better workforce for the future of the city and of the state, we need to start the investment early on, but we can't if we're not adjusting the funding, the investment according to inflation. And I don't know why there's always that discrepancy on, the inflation. They always forget to adjust. I don't know. Yeah, but
yeah, same for the
minimum
wage.
I support that. Yeah, exactly. I support that 100%.
Another part of that workforce development and access to those jobs someday is early childhood education. What are your thoughts on early childhood education in the city?
I mean, that is a subject close to my heart because it's very expensive to afford childcare. As a mother of young children, I have, faced situation of having what we say pay to work because of how expensive it is. So I believe in universal pre-K. I think that we should definitely start with at least 3 to 5 year olds, 5-year-old free childcare, at least in the most underserved areas, low-income populations. I do know that is a ambitious goal, which I'm willing and will fight for, but currently, we can invest more on having, financial support for families who need that support for help with childcare, investing on the available daycares, so they're able to invest in their infrastructure and their workforce. I think Massachusetts has done a good job. We need to continue to invest in that and invest more. One thing I also know is that there is always barriers for people to access the resources available, for parents to know what even is available. One thing I think a lot of people might not think about is the people that need the resources the most are the people that usually don't have access to that information. Either because, they are living, in situation, or maybe they don't have easy access to the internet to be, searching for those things, or there's a language barrier. So making that information more accessible to the families that need should also be a priority.
You mentioned that a lot of these things would cost money. And I personally think that we need to find a way to increase revenue for the state to fund state services. So I'm wondering if you agree with that premise that we should increase state funding. How do you think we should do that equitably and in a way that is fair?
I think we have that bill for the fair share that the millionaires the corporations have to pay their taxes here and not send their money offshores.
Yes. Can I
Yes.
jump in on that?
Yes, yeah.
Because I'm glad you bring that up.
Yep.
So the bill, which is backed up by Raise Up Massachusetts, is called an act combating offshore tax avoidance. So right now, especially large corporations, because small businesses can't really do this, but large corporations will take some of their profits that they make in Massachusetts and move them offshores to a tax haven like the Cayman Islands or some place where they can hide it. And then they avoid paying Massachusetts taxes. So there's a bill that would allow us to increase the amount of that money, that hidden money that we tax, so that we have the same policy that other states around us like New Hampshire have. And it's hard to think of New Hampshire as like a very high tax state, but so to kind of be on par with New Hampshire and increase the amount of those hidden taxes that corporations are hiding, I'm wondering, would you support that bill? 100%.
100%. I think that's common sense that they pay their fair share. Like it's a great name, fair share. They should be paying, and 100% support. In fact, I have written to my legislators asking them to support that bill. So.
Yeah, same here.
Yes.
And a lot of them have, so I appreciate that. Another just point on that is I hear one of the things to think about is how that is a very unfair playing field for small businesses, right? So small businesses, I'm thinking of like Brewed Awakening, they pay their taxes. And,
exactly.
But then, if there's a Dunkin' or Starbucks, not to directly name, but like not those in particular, but like stand-in, a large chain, they can find ways to avoid paying taxes. And that's not fair to Brewed.
No, it's not. It's 100% not, yes. And I am definitely a big small business supporter, and that needs to end. They need to pay their fair share.
Yeah. All right. So pending that idea of bringing in more revenue, one of the areas you've talked about is affordability. You talked about affordable childcare, but also in terms of housing. So I guess I'll just put it broadly. What do you think are some of the problems with the Massachusetts housing stock and our housing approach, and what do you think we should do differently, or what would you do differently in the State House?
Well, I think, can I bring it a little closer to home here? I think that, first of all, the cost of rent is unbelievably high, and people are being priced out of their homes. And so we need better tenant protections. I think we have that effort right now to have that ballot question to remind me of the name of the ballot question. There's a proper... I
don't have the term off the top of my head, but it's about...
It'll come back to us. But so tenant protection, I think that we need to have funds for renovating some of the old buildings so we can have a more affordable housing in that way, and people can keep the buildings and the homes that they already have in order to build. So like there's a lot of talking about building new homes, which I do believe we need, but I think there are a lot of older homes that we could be using but need to be renovated, and people cannot afford to do it. So how can we get funds for people to be able to renovate and keep those homes and use it? Zoning is a big thing. I think that there can be reform in that way. I know a lot of people, in the district can be passionate about, the issue of zoning and how that plays out. I think that we do need to think about the well-being of our neighbors, and thinking that there are people out there who are homeless and need homes. And if there is ways to do that, to have multi-family housing built, we need to do it. We need to take care of our people. It's just it has to be done. There is a homelessness crisis, and it has to be done. So tenant protections, zoning reform so we can build new housing, multifamily housing, and support and money so people can renovate the older buildings so they can keep their homes and have more affordable housing in that way.
In terms of multifamily housing, one of the points that often comes up in the discourse is that Lowell has more multifamily housing than any other town in the region, in the NIMCOG region, and also more than most of Massachusetts. So I guess, to what extent do you think more multifamily housing should be placed in Lowell versus other places, or do you think both? Like, how do you think about that?
I think that, every town or city should can make their own decisions about what their needs are. I'll be honest with you, I haven't given much thought about, is this like an issue of burden of like, should Lowell be having to build more and other places are not? Is that kind of what that...
The discourse seems to be that way. Which I guess we could question the underlying meaning of that. Like, what does it mean for multifamily housing to be a burden? That's one way I've thought about it.
Yeah, so if I would say if the state is demanding that the more multifamily housing be built, I would say all towns and cities should take that on. I think we all are responsible for taking care of our neighbors. I can see where the case has been made, like, why are we the only ones doing it? But I'm not sure if that's what the state is requiring, that only, one place do it. All I know is that I strongly believe that if there's need in our community and there's opportunities for those needs to be met, we should do it. And I know that going back to that idea of having input from the community, I think that there are ways to do it where we can have input from the community into, what does that look like? Because I know, like, being from Chelmsford, people are very passionate about, what it looks like to have, something new built. How is that going to change, the look of the area? Let's have some input in that. But I don't think we need to pick either have new housing or change the look. I think we can have something that looks okay, look good, and still be able to house our unhoused neighbors or people who are, new families who are looking to buy new homes and are unable to do so.
Another dynamic I like to think about is minimum lot sizes. So in Lowell, I guess the largest lot size requirement that we have is in some of the single family suburb districts. Minimum lot size is like 10,000 square feet. And like, compared to other parts of Lowell, is pretty big. So I'm thinking of like areas of Pawtuckaville or Belvedere, like those are areas with larger lot sizes. However, the Boston Globe put out this piece about the rest of the greater Boston area, like Eastern Mass, and how there are, I think it's most towns have some level of area that has a minimum lot size of 1 or 2 acres.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so
2 acres is big. I used to live in Pepperell and we had, that's big.
So would that be, I don't know, an area of interest for you to like find a targeted way to reduce minimum lot sizes in some places? Yes,
I think, and I also think that if Lowell has that, can do it with that size, I think other places should be able to do it as well. And if we're talking again about the urgency of building more housing, 100%, yes.
So you mentioned the issue of homelessness, and I actually had a conversation with a city councilor where I talked about like, housing is the number one part of homelessness. And they reminded me that there is a lot of nuance to that. And like there's other, mental health and addiction services and all kinds of, and protections for victims of domestic abuse and all those things. And there's a lot of great nonprofits that do that work. But just to kind of zero in on the housing part of homelessness, some of the areas that I think about are affordable housing as a preventative measure for people entering homelessness, and also permanent supportive housing for people who are homeless and, need somewhere to go. I'm wondering, would you support increasing state funding to affordable housing and permanent supportive housing projects?
Yes, 100%. And you saying that reminds me, I talked to someone recently, for the sake of their privacy, of course, I won't mention names, but a person who used to be homeless and, is in kind of housing right now, but also had substance abuse issues. And they told me that the housing, the community was what helped them to recover, even going to the rehab place. Now, here's what I'm not saying. I'm not saying rehab does not work. I'm not saying that this case, it's applies to everybody. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying there is a case to be made that having stable housing, a community that supports you around you and having that stability did support this person in their recovery. So I think that we need to think about that as a way to help this community. Is not a one-size-fits-all. Yeah.
I spoke with a provider for the population in Lowell who use and inject drugs, provider who works with that population, and they talked with me about how So rehab programs are, as I understand it, are typically about like a 7-day process, mostly to make sure that a person doesn't enter like a state of severe shock or, a very unhealthy situation. And then after that, if a person doesn't have housing, they'll just go back to the streets.
Oh my gosh.
And how, like, how are you able to overcome an addiction, after that? One area that I find interesting is the need for sober housing post rehab.
That's a very good point.
As I understand it, it's for a lot of people, they have to have private funding for that. Like there's not, insurance doesn't typically cover that. Would you be supportive of ways to increase state funding for sober housing?
100%. And I'll be honest with you. I just have had the honor of having a lot of conversations with people affected by the situation more recently. And something that I came out that stayed with me is that these are the people that not many are spending time trying to solve the issue, because it becomes so like everybody has an opinion and it becomes a debate. People focus on this one. I oppose this one thing, this one way of doing things. I want this one way, when it really comes down to it's a multifaceted solution situation with beautiful human beings in the middle, right? So I am really determined to work with people who are, first of all, directly affected by it, people who are working with people who are directly affected by it. I actually spoke to some people at that event that I mentioned this morning. I'm going to be meeting with them to learn more about the solutions. And you mentioned something that I hadn't even thought about, like support for after that process. Where do they go? Like, how are they supported? We need to not only be thinking about those different solutions, but fighting for funding for them, providing funding for them, and not get caught up into these fights about how we disagree with this one little, because again, we're not advocating for a one-size-fits-all. We just need to recognize it's a multifaceted situation, and we're only going to solve it if we are able to have conversations around it and come around the table and be determined to help our homeless siblings, because they deserve better. They really deserve better. And my friend said, they said, I feel that when it comes to the marginalized communities, we're at the very bottom of the pile, because, people advocate for this group, people advocate for this group. And when it comes to us, we're often not even part of the conversation. Or when, and this is not part, they didn't say this part, but I'm saying it. When they are, it just becomes this argument about, is a mental health? Do they, are they being, refusing help? It becomes an argument, and then people just give up. We cannot give up.
I appreciate that. I was at the city council this week when the council decided to ban safe injection sites. And I had gone to speak just to kind of encourage the council to be more inclusive in the decision-making process, not necessarily to say we have to do this, but it's true. We have this area that became very controversial, and it's not the end of the world that this one thing happened, and it is what it is. I think even some of the discourse on Reddit I've seen has been saying, okay, we disagree on this, fine. Let's find something we agree on and work together to try and fix the problem.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard, about this issue, and I've done some reading, and to be honest, I do find it, I know I might be criticized for this, but I'm learning, so I'm sure, all of us are learning in some things. I find it complex because I've talked to family members who are like, I'm afraid that this is going to just motivate my family member to go there and do it. Mm-hmm. And I felt that. I connected with that. But then I also read that there is, I don't know how many thousand needles found and then there's increase in spreading of disease like HIV and other, because of these needles everywhere. So like, why are we not talking? So what is the solution for that side of things, right? So again, it's not a simple conversation, and we should not be going at it at each other. We should be, again, coming back to the table and say, okay, maybe we don't agree on this part, but like, I do see the need for solving this issue. How can we still like help each other? And so I really hope that we are able to keep the conversation going and again, like, fight for our neighbors because they deserve it.
Speaking of working together and everyone being included in the process, one of the big parts of your platform is around accessibility and transparency. So what will that look like concretely for you? Like, how do you want to make the legislature itself more accessible and transparent, and how will you be accessible and transparent?
I'll start with the personal level. Like, for myself, I am committed to, for example, holding office hours in the district, town halls. I will be using social media, newsletter, all forms of communication to share. I can use actually the beautiful example of State Rep Tara Hong. He's been doing beautifully. Like, just what did we do today? You know, what was the bill that was voted on? I think that's a way that the public can know what's been happening and what he voted on that day, to keep the public engaged. But I also believe that we need some systemic change in Beacon Hill. We need systemic change. I don't think that can happen overnight, but I do think the public is ready for it. Every single person, I mean, everybody I talk to support the question on the ballot, question 1, and they're upset that it was not, implemented.
That was the question to audit the legislature.
To audit the legislature. I know there were some legal issues with that, and now the auditor is coming back with another one that she's trying to get on the ballot to have a open public records for the entire, so the public will have access to everything. So that would kind of override the other one. But I think the public needs to see their legislators at least saying, I'm fighting for this, I support this, and what are they doing about it? Like, what's happening at the State House? And so, yes, I am committed to going there and doing my part to make the public aware of what's happening. For example, if there are bills that I am trying to pass, I'll 100% make sure that the public knows when the hearing's happening, how they can register to give testimony. A lot of people, they want to do it, they don't know how, so demystify that process. And but also, I'm going to be advocating within the legislature for even more reform in transparency. They had some progress this year, which is good, but we have a lot more to do and way more to go. And again, it's systemic, and I think that we need more people, more legislators taking a stand. When it comes to systemic change, it can't be just one person. And I always say, sometimes people give me advice. They're like, you be careful, because if you talk too much about transparency, you're going to, get on the wrong side. And no, I think I am on the right side for wanting a transparent legislature, a government that is open to the people it serves. And I'm going to bring the people with me. And I think sooner or later, this will happen because the people is ready for it and the people is fighting for it.
I think the vote on the issue 1 about auditing the legislature spoke volumes about public attitudes toward transparency. Mm-hmm. I think it was something like 72%. 72% like supported it, which is a pretty clear message that we want to understand better what's going on in there. It can be a little bit of a black box sometimes. Yes. Like, I always found it interesting that for the longest time, committee votes were not public. They're not they're public now, right? Or
yes, now
yeah.
they were made public. Yes, this was one of the changes this year.
Yeah. So like there were instances, and I won't give a specific one, but like where every person on the committee was a co-sponsor of a bill, and then a bill would go into committee and then somehow die in committee. And it's like, wait, how's that possible? Because like you all co-sponsor the bill. And so it makes it hard to hold the legislator accountable if you don't know what's going on behind closed doors.
Exactly. Exactly. And then there's the issue of, everybody votes with the speaker.
Yeah.
That is, yeah.
And there's a ballot question that is gathering signatures now.
Oh, yes, the stipend one.
Yes, to adjust legislator stipends in order to basically, right now, as I understand it, Massachusetts has like the most highly priced stipends, or like the highest amount of their income coming from stipends of any legislature in the country. And I'm not to say that any individual legislature is making decisions based on their own personal income, but it definitely creates an incentive structure where a person where a person, at least in the back of their mind, like knows if I go against what the Speaker of the House or the Senate President wants, they could change my assignment, and that would lead to me making less money. And so I've heard some legislators have said that they've found that this system can stifle open discourse about bills, where people feel a concentration of power in the legislature. I'm not there day to day, but I could understand how that would do that.
Yes. There are people who were there, who came out and spoke about how it is, and it's definitely happening. And I think the smaller transparency changes that happens are going to gradually shed light on those bigger things. And the more the public can see those bigger things, the more we can advocate for change. Because I'm thinking, so my inspiration, because like I mentioned, people were like warning me about, because I don't know if you heard like about the basement. If you vote, a certain way, you get put in the office in the basement.
There was a famous Ed Markey commercial back in the day.
I was going to say that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ed Markey's desk was thrown out in the hall by the State House bosses because Markey fought to make judges work full-time. Markey's bill is now the law.
The bosses may tell me where to sit. No one tells me where to stand.
So that is my inspiration. You can tell me where to sit, but you cannot tell me where to stand.
That's incredible.
So yes, so that's what I'm taking. The lesson I'm taking. I'm going to represent the people that vote for me, no matter what. And if the people that vote for me want a transparent legislature, want me to vote a certain way, of course they're voting for me, knowing my platform and knowing what I believe. I'm not, I'm going to vote according to that, of course. But like, number one, I represent the people that vote for me and the values that go with that. And yeah, but that has to change. And to your example about Ed Markey, how long ago was that?
Yeah.
That was a while ago. And so, as I mentioned earlier, this is not a one speaker issue. It's been a while. But we are ready for change, and I believe that change it's happening.
So the very last thing I wanted to ask about, since you mentioned it at the beginning, and it's been part of what you've talked about historically, is the area of immigration. So if you were a state representative, what would be your priorities? Like, what issues are you thinking about in terms of immigration in Massachusetts?
I'm hoping that they pass the Safe Communities Act. I actually just submitted my testimony yesterday because the deadline was at 5 p.m. And I am planning to go there next week to give testimony. And pretty much what that bill is meant to do is to keep all people in the Commonwealth safe, meaning anyone in the Commonwealth can report crimes to the police without being afraid of being asked for the immigration status. And I have spoken to members of police force who support that. That's not their job to be checking people's immigration status. That's not their jobs is to, fight crimes at that, at that level. And in my testimony, I mentioned people that I know, women who were facing domestic violence for years who did not report because of fear. People who were being abused by employers who did not report out of fear. So that's one of those things. But I mean, right now there is a bill, I don't remember the exact number, but to stop ICE agents from wearing masks to identify themselves. I mean, again, law enforcement members that I've spoken to, they don't want to have men going around the Commonwealth wearing masks and not identifying themselves. That actually makes their job harder. It does not make their job easier. So that should be a priority. At the end of the day, people can take my words and distort, but what I'm requiring and asking is humane treatment of everyone. I don't think that's too much to ask. Due process, having warrant and basic dignity. It's constitutional rights, right? So that's what I'm going to fight for. I am not defending, criminals. I'm not advocating for, as some try to frame, I'm not advocating for gang members to be on the loose in our communities. That is not what I'm advocating for. I am saying that a hardworking mother who may be married to someone who is an abuser is able to get out of that situation safely. And I am advocating that a hardworking immigrant who has a boss who is taking advantage of that situation is able to report that safely. And I am advocating that if a person so happens to be here undocumented and they do need to be deported, that a agent comes with a warrant and identify themselves before they do, the process that needs to be done. I don't think that's too much to ask. That's how it has been done in the past. So that is my view, and that's what, and I think that can be done at the state level. I know there's bigger reform that needs to be done at the federal level. I also think that a lot of local leaders take for granted the influence they have and the power they have for just speaking up on these issues. I am actually astonished sometimes of how so few have spoken when a lot of very horrible things have happened. And I'm not saying, again, it's not about defending criminals. It's just sometimes speaking for human dignity, speaking up for human dignity. I would like to see more of that, especially in a city such as Lowell, which is such a beautiful, diverse immigrant community, hardworking immigrant community. So yes, that's what I would like to see.
The discourse around that is always interesting for me too. I spoke with Councillor Wayne Jeunesse recently about this, and the way he framed it was he, in private spaces, was working to try and make sure that our city is doing its best to protect people, but that he was not hearing as an individual pressure to speak out from the community. And he was saying, like,
I have been a little restrained in my public comments about ICE only because when you are an elected official for a city, when you open your mouth to say anything, you run the risk of that being taken as an official position of the city. We've seen this federal administration be extremely vindictive with communities who have pushed back. And I didn't want to do anything that would have put a bigger target on the residents of our city. I didn't want anyone in our community to feel like their family was being ripped apart because of something I said.
He didn't want to just be saying stuff and then the city could be targeted based on a city councilor saying something. And it's not fair that we live in a world where that is the case. But I'm curious how you grapple with that.
I've had someone tell me the same thing. I think cities and states with a lot of immigrants are targeted regardless. I think we are kidding ourselves to think that we can protect ourselves with silence. I think silence is actually being silent. It's playing to the hands of injustice. And I also think that staying silent sends a message to the people who are being targeted that you don't care. I think that people can make their personal choices. That's not mine to make. And when it comes to, let's say, people in my district are not asking me to speak up on it, I think as a elected official, there are times where people will ask you to do things, but there are times where you can also lead the way and speak because it's the right thing to do. And again, when I say the right thing to do, I know I have to repeat myself because there's so much misinformation. It's speak up for humane treatment, for due process, and for constitutional rights. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you bring that up because that often is the reaction, right? Is the idea that people want to protect criminals. And I think there can be a clear line between, I guess maybe I'll ask, so then under the Safe Communities Act, for example, if the federal law enforcement had a judicial warrant, I actually don't know the specifics of this, under the Safe Communities Act, would local police departments be able to cooperate with federal immigration enforcement under that circumstance, if there were a federal judicial warrant for criminals? I'm not sure the specifics of that.
I think, I'm not sure either, but I think that enforcement of criminal situation, probably FBI would be involved. I honestly, I won't speak to it because I really don't understand. But I think what I do know is this. Let me speak to what I do know.
Yeah.
Being undocumented is a civil violation, not a criminal violation. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, I want to offer, if you have any closing messages to folks, anything you would like to say to wrap up here.
What I would like to say is this. I just kicked off the campaign last month. I am eager to talk to residents in the district to learn more about their priorities. But I'm also, my humble request is that people don't just take sound bites. Really get to know me, learn more about my values. I care deeply about community. I have a philosophy of love your neighbor as you love yourself. So I really hope that we can get to know each other. You can visit my website, www.lorenabetts.com. If you are inclined to support, I do need support financial for the campaign. You can also help spread the word. But yes, I just really look forward to speaking to people in the district, and I hope to earn your trust and support.
Yeah, thank you so much. And just for clarity's sake, I likely, if there are challengers, we'll likely interview everybody, and I wanted to put that out there. And that being said, Lorena Betts, you're running for Middlesex 16th District?
That's correct.
Or 16th Middlesex District for State Representative. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. And just a quick clarification, expansion. It's like 16th Middlesex covers North Chelmsford, the neighborhoods of Pawtuckaville and Centralville in Lowell. Because a lot of people don't know that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.